Good morning, and for those of you who are new to my channel, and we have had a few new joiners over the last few days, I go live every Sunday at 9 o'clock and take questions live about primary maths teaching or anything you want to ask me about. And Mahmood, no, I still can't sort you out a visa to come to the UK. So lots has been happening this week. My main aim today is to talk about session 3 of interventions in primary maths, age 9 to 11. It's a series I'm working on, just capturing what I'm doing in schools just now. But I'll just talk a bit about the other things that have been going on as a consequence of me having had a week off with COVID. I started this petition. It's really about reintroducing consultation into maths education. It took over a week from me submitting it to it going live, but it went live on Friday night and it's only Sunday morning. Sorry, there was just a glitch in the internet there. I hope we're live. It's only Sunday morning and it's already had over 800 signatures. Thank you so much. If you've got time to sign, please sign. If you can persuade your family or your colleagues or your friends or people on Facebook or WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups or Twitter or anything to sign, please get them to sign. We've got Nadeem Zahawi now. He's sacked the key minister who's been responsible for abolishing consultation. Please let's get a message to him to reach out to teachers and consider evidence and consider reality in the development of policy, and let's hold back on this toxic test that will clearly damage so many schools and children. So if you have any questions on that, you're welcome to ask. Otherwise, I will go on with session 3 of interventions age 9 to 11. So last week I talked about how with the classes, the first session was on subtraction and making sure they were going fluently between subtraction as taking away and subtraction as counting on. And the second session was the foundations of multiplication. And it was all about getting children talking fluently about their maths and making sure they understood it and could express their own thinking, as well as laying some key foundational skills and fixing some broken runs in the lower level of the ladder. Oh, the other thing I did this week was interview Sue Johnson-Wilder about maths anxiety, which I haven't edited yet. It's on my list of jobs to do, but wow, really enjoyed that interview. So this week we were building from that. So what I did was I try and consolidate what children have done in class at the same time as teaching them and doing their interventions. So they've been doing factors and prime numbers. So I gave them the number 20 to work on the top of their page and asked them to draw rectangles with 20 squares in. Hi Mahmood, I still can't get you an immigration visa. I am sorry. Right. Rectangles with 20 squares in. So they were quite confused by this at first, but then I reminded them of what we'd done last week on multiplications rectangles, and with a bit of work, and some of them needed base 10 blocks, I gave them 20 cubes to play with to try and make into rectangles. We came up with the 4x5 rectangle, and they did a 2x10 rectangle and a long skinny 1x20 rectangle that fits beautifully on a page. And depending on how long that took, the kids who finished quickly, I gave them 24 to work on. Kids who took a bit longer, I gave them maybe 15 to work on. And then the children who were finishing last, I gave them 13 to work on. And then we talked about what multiplications this showed. So we said that 4 times 5 is 20, and 2 times 10 is 20, and 1 times 20 is 20. And then we said, so 4, 2, 1, 5, 10 and 20, what are they of 20? What kind of numbers of 20 are they? And they're generally completely forgotten. 1 or 2 had remembered and had figured this out. So we played hangman until they found the word factors, and then they made the link. We made the links between what they're doing in lessons, what we're doing with multiplication here. that factors are just where you've got the answer to the multiplication, which is the number of squares in the rectangle, and they've got to find the sides of the rectangles or the numbers that they're multiplying together to give that number. And then we looked at 13, and 13 only makes a long skinny rectangle. It's only 1 times 13 is 13. So what kind of number is 13? And again, we often had to play hangman until they puzzled out it was a prime number. And then they really got it, that prime numbers only make long skinny rectangles, 1 times the number itself. And they've got that visual image in their head. And when children have a visual image for their maths, they are much more likely to remember it. It's going to come. The sleep does so much work on things that you understand with visual images that it can't do on things you've only understood as rote learned methods and facts. Next thing we did was I asked them to compare the size of these rectangles. Which one is bigger? And some children said this one, and some children said this one, and some children said I think they're both the same, and we had a bit of discussion about why they think that. And then we carefully measured the length and the width of each one. Length has a silent G, width has a silent D, and we wrote length equals, and this one is 10 centimetres, 10 cm. Got them using their rulers that they're terrible at because they haven't been using them during lockdown. And width equals, and that one's 3 centimetres. And same for this one. This one is 8 by 4. But they still didn't know which was bigger. Which is bigger? Just because it covers more space, doesn't it? So we used our size measuring device, which comprised this and a window. So they were putting, I don't know if you can see that through there, this over the squared paper, holding it up to the window so that the squares really shone through and they could count the squares. And we said, the size, it depends how many squares it covers, and these are square centimetres. So we'd then get them to write area equals, and this is 3 by 10, so it's 30 cm with a little 2, and explain the notation. Then I asked them to write the same notation for this one, and then we could compare them. This one is 28, that one's 30. They could see that one is bigger. Actually, no, was this one 32? Can't remember, is it 7 or 8? It's 8, so that one's 32, sorry. Which is nice because it gets rid of the idea that length creates the bigger size. And then I had another sheet similar that they could compare. Some of them did that, some of them were slower, they just worked on one. And then I was drawing rectangles freehand on plain paper, 6 by 10. Width it was 6 centimetres, length it was 10 centimetres. How big is it going to be? And they could see it was going to be 60 centimetres because we've done so much work on multiplications rectangles now. They could imagine the 6 rows of 10 squares. So that was fabulous, and they got practicing loads of foundational skills there. And then we went on to multiplication, short multiplication, this kind of thing. And I would show them a worksheet like this and say, how scared are you? And we'd discuss that. And I'd say, which multiplication tables do you know well? And if they only know their 2 times table, then I would give them this one. But I'd try and have different children working on different sheets, which is always nice, and try and get them all on sheets where they're confident. Now, if a child isn't confident, when they try to get started, I'd write these out as column additions. So that would be 43, add 43 to make sure they're comfortable that that's what 2 times 43 means. Or if it's 3 times, obviously we'd have a column addition with 3 of that number. And we'd do the column addition with the exchanging. And they could usually understand that. I will come back to what I did with the children who did not understand that at all later on in this session, because there were some. And then I'd link this. Well, here we're doing the 2 3s, and here we're doing the 2 4s. And that's why, well, when we got into the ones with exchanging, that's why we're exchanging. It's just like a column addition. Imagine the column addition, and you can see this method. This is just a shortened form. It's a more concisely written form of it, of the same thing. And most children really liked that if they were struggling and scared by this. And if they were struggling, if they were confident with their 2 times table, they'd then be away with that. And I'd try and get them onto a sheet where they were quite challenged, so they could really see the benefits of doing the sheet. So if they kind of knew their 6s but not very fluently, I'd give them that one. And by the end of the sheet, they'd know them because they'd used each fact of multiplication by 6 so many times. So they're really motoring at how quickly they're making progress. Now, having done that, I would then give them a sheet where they don't know the times table. There were 1 or 2 who knew all their times tables, so I'll come back to that in a minute. So if they didn't know, say, their 7 times table, I would just be making sure that they could write it out. And a lot of children find that difficult. It's why they've not learnt their tables. It's really scary. So they generally know 714. And then we would put up 7 fingers and count on to 21. Talk about how we know we're going to get to 70. When we get to 70, we're done. But if we get to 69 or 71, something's gone wrong. And we need to go back and puzzle out what's gone wrong. And they really just build in their confidence that they can puzzle out a table, even if they're slow. And when they're doing multiplication by a number they're not confident in the tables with, that's what they've got to do. And then generally they can go on and do that sheet and build confidence that they can do short multiplication by a number they don't know the tables of. They just need to slow down and do that. And that's where intervention work is different to ordinary class teaching, because we would normally make sure children knew their tables before they were doing this. But this is what we need to do because this is where we are after lockdown with a lot of children. And for most children, that was the session. If a child knew their multiplications tables, I would pop them onto this sheet, which I introduced in the first session, and onto the multiplication by big numbers, get them saying those numbers, puzzling those out. And I had one child who got on to multiplication by decimals, although they'd not seen this decimal sheet before, so we actually went back to addition with decimals and they didn't get that far. But they were loving that. They were so challenged. It was great work. Now, for the children who could not cope with short multiplication, and a lot were having meltdowns, because what's happened with a lot of children is that they have learnt column addition, rote method, and they've learnt to do exchanging, but they don't actually understand it. And when I up the ante to push them onto short multiplication, I put them in a situation where they know I want them to understand, and they know I expect them to understand, and to say if they don't understand, all sorts of stuff comes out. So a lot of them really don't understand exchanging. So what we do is we go back to addition, visual addition. This is no exchanging. Can they understand what's going on there? The apparatus is all out. They can use the apparatus if they like. Can they puzzle out the totals? Are they totally happy with that? And some were struggling. So we went very, very slowly. And then if they're doing column addition like this, no exchanging again, can they picture this base 10 apparatus still? Can they make sense of it? Then we went on to this one, which is 2-digit addition with exchanging. Can they see that grouped as a 10? So they're counting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, the group of 10, and then the extra ones. And some of them couldn't. They needed to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. And if they needed to do that, that's what we did. And then we went on to this one, which is the 2-digit column addition with exchanging. All these worksheets are free to download. If you just go to RebeccaTheMathsLady.com to the worksheets, you'll find links to them on Facebook. Just simple click. There's no password barriers, nothing like that. So here we went through exchanging with apparatus. And for some children, it was like liberation. Yes, I get it now. I really get it now. I'm really happy. And some just didn't. So for the ones who were getting it, they've maybe had barriers to learning in the past. When this was done, they might not have been ready for it physically. Their working memory might not have been sufficiently well developed, but it is now. They are striding forward, So we do 3-digit work, and that's with no exchanging. And then there is a worksheet where we're exchanging just the ones for tens. There's one where we're exchanging tens for hundreds. There's one where we're double exchanging. There's some column addition worksheets. They are all there, and they just love it. And we'll be going on with those children to the subtraction when they're ready next week. For those children who it was really clear couldn't cope with this, I went back to my propeller board for year 1. These are just general diagnostic boards. I get them from a company called Propeller. They're rapid recall whiteboards. This is the year 1 one. You can get a pack where there's one of each, years 1 to 6. And I used the second side of this where you pick a number between 5 and 20, put it in the star, and they have to copy it into every star so it's there for every question. And they are working on very, very simple questions. And what became apparent was that those children who were really struggling with 2-digit addition with exchanging were really struggling with year 1 work. And we could start to see what their real understanding was. And that's as far as we've got this week. So I hope that's of some use to you. I'm teaching last week. I'm teaching this coming week. It's some of you have got half term. I haven't. So I will be back, hopefully giving great news on the petition and explaining about week 4 of these interventions. For those of you who don't know, I wrote the original. I was the lead author on the original English microsite for teaching assistants in maths classrooms back in 2009, before the Cultural Revolution and the abolition of experts and the use of evidence began. And I worked co-producing it with everyone and a team, and it was amazing and just great fun in those days. But of course, all that stuff was deleted, as were we, the experts. Strange old world. So hopefully that petition will fly. Fingers crossed, and hopefully we'll make some progress. It's all we want. We want to be able to teach children in wise ways again. Comments are always welcome. Any questions, if you want to put them on YouTube, in the Expert Primary Maths Teaching Face group, which is my Facebook group. On LinkedIn, Math Education, Math Culture is my group where I chat to people. You're really welcome. And I will try and answer your questions in the future. Take care. Bye for now.